Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Welcome back to Relational Rants. I am your host, J. Marie. I'm gonna take this bracelet off because I already see it's about to get on my nerves. But anyway, how are you guys? You guys out here floating around in the peripheral. That's good. There's so many things that been on my mind lately. But it's this one thing that actually I've been thinking a lot about. It's a serious subject and I wanted to talk about it seriously, of course.
It's J. Marie. J. Marie. J. Marie. It's J. Marie. Relational rants. J. Marie. Relational rants. J. Marie. Relational rants. J. Marie. It's J. Marie. Relational rants. J. Marie. Relational. J. Marie. Relational. J. Marie. It's J. Marie. Relational rants.
What I wanted to talk about today is around family estrangement. And I'm probably going to be referring to it quite a bit around like parental estrangement. It's something that I'm actually currently experiencing now. I feel odd, obviously, admitting this a little bit because anytime we're disclosing things that are personal or very personal, I mean, you're opening yourself up to be criticized, critiqued, judged, and that can be challenging at times. I'm currently estranged from both of my parents, actually. One is kind of like involuntary, and the other one is kind of want to say involuntary as well, but it's, I guess, voluntary too because I've been participating in it. I think today I'm just going to really kind of talk about the parent that I feel there's a voluntary, there's some level of choice in the estrangement. I'm not about to get into all of it, but I am currently estranged actually from my father, which is probably surprising to maybe some people, or has been surprising to people that know me because people know that I've always had a pretty close relationship with my father. My father has been in my life my entire life, and him and my mom were married, and I mean, at some point or another, my father actually became essentially my primary parent. So, I mean, and I'm battling with that in terms of primary parent because he was probably my primary parent for a lot longer than I'm saying, but circumstances wise, right, when the environment kind of supports what I'm talking about with him being my primary parent, that happened when I was about 17. From that point, my dad has always been that's my dad. That's my parent. That's a person who see, this is challenging. This is challenging because I want to say he's a person that has consistently met my needs as being my parent, but he hasn't always met my needs. As you can see, I'm very conflicted around how I even want to talk about or describe my relationship with my dad. Now, it's complicated, like most relationships are, particularly with family members. I just want to be mindful of that. I still love my dad. I care about him dearly. I have a lot of respect for my father. I respect my dad because he didn't have to always be there. And even in the capacity that he was, even with him falling short in particular ways, I still recognize that my father sacrificed things for me. I think my father mostly has good intentions. It's just sometimes the execution or how he handles things doesn't always convey that. And I've been dealing with that. I know this is a really hot topic in a sense over these last few years, particularly within my generation as a millennial. We talk a lot about family estrangement, how adult children are going no contact with their parents, how we look at certain things as a phase. Oh, this is really popular right now. We feel people are responding to it. Oh, just because it's popular, because everybody is doing this. We fail to look at the underlying reasons or just the cultural shift of it, or I guess the best word to say is the collective importance of what's happening, the collective importance of that shift. As a collective, we're very uncomfortable around that. And what I'm saying is being estranged from your family, particularly your parents. I encountered this because in updating or sharing with people my decision, and I'm challenged with that too, because my decision wasn't to be estranged from my father. It just happened. I would say more from his end in a way versus something I intentionally decided to act on. I'll just say that there was an argument that I had with my dad a while ago as a result of that disagreement. It kind of just happened. It's crazy because I never was like, I'm not ever talking to you again. But he's of it just, I would just say he's avoided me, which is on par for the course for my father. Okay, so anyway. But in sharing with people, me being estranged from my dad, the type of responses that I get from people, that's been eye-opening. Because my dad is a cool guy. He's not like this awful person. He's not a deadbeat. He doesn't necessarily fit the characteristic or the personality profile of somebody you would feel you need to be necessarily estranged from. I actually don't necessarily feel I need to be estranged from him, but I have accepted the estrangement that has naturally taken place. When I fill people in on why or what happened, first there's usually pushback. If I just say it and maybe give a little context, it's usually a lot of pushback because people respond to my father in a particular way. Because again, he's cool, he's very charismatic, he's a likable person. He's a likable person, seriously. There's a level of that because I am very direct. Or I'm very convicted. The things that I believe, the way that I feel about stuff, I can be very grounded in my experience of something. Now, let me say this. I'm stubborn. I know that. I know that I can probably come off as a know-it-all, and I'm aware of that too. The irony, right? So I know those characteristics sometimes are challenging to interact with in a certain regard. Now, I'm not hard. I will change my idea about something, my beliefs about something, how I feel about something. I'm not anti that. I'm not, oh, you can't teach me something, or there's not a value in the way someone else is viewing or reflecting to me about what I'm deciding to do or not. I'm not anti you providing your opinion about things. But what I am, and what I do push back a lot on, is the person feeling their perspective is going to be prioritized over my own experience. At times when I'm talking about what's going on with my father and I, where people push back on what I say about him or how I feel about him, or again, my experience. It's odd to me because it's like that's my dad. That's my dad, right? But I also have to take credit in perpetuating the view of my father that a lot of people hold, because that was a view that I had at some point of my dad. Not that that view is totally obsolete now, but it has changed. And I think people are having a harder time, right, adjusting to that. With the pushback that I get, there's this level of me appearing naive, me appearing childish for my decision. I can't even be like my decision, because I'll just say my decision in the sense of to maintain the estrangement or the distance, to maintain the distance, I would say more, which I will also say that was already kind of in play before the fallout, that I had started to distance myself some. Now, part of that distance also was coming from, for lack of a better word, being punished for not complying with expectations of me. My distance was in response to being excluded. Okay. So I'm already being excluded, and my efforts to resolve and repair, because I took a lot of efforts to resolve and repair, were null and void. Therefore, I'm distancing based upon being excluded, based upon the treatment that I'm receiving. And I'm being talked to or advised in a way of my decision to maintain distance from my father as me somehow being childish. Like I'm overreacting, I'm doing too much, I'm being childish. I want to state this too. This is also a trigger for me. I'm realizing that some of this is me too, in terms of how I am filtering this feedback or reaction that I'm getting from people, because it makes me feel like I don't know how to make good decisions for myself. Yesterday, I was thinking about this and how I've been in the position very long time, since my childhood, of being in the position to have to make decisions for myself, to have to figure things out on my own without much guidance or input from other people, which likely contributes to how convicted I am when I make decisions, or how I show up, basically how I govern my own life. When you come from an experience where you've been taught or conditioned to make decisions for yourself from a very, very young age, it's hard not to be convicted in what it is that you are deciding for yourself. I've had to trust myself. I've had to trust my decision making. Therefore, I continue to just trust my decision making. But I do find it interesting that I am looked at as being naive, that I'm making this decision that I will later regret. I'm being immature, particularly since I am the child in this relational dynamic. Now, I'm not a child, as you can see, but in the relational dynamic between me and my father, I am the child. He's my parent. And again, the avoidance of me, the avoidance of repair, avoidance of addressing, the conflict avoidance, because that's what it is, because a lot of us have difficulty dealing with conflict. Conflict is not always about aggression or violence or verbal attack. It's just opposing positions. It's a conflict. We're opposing, there's some opposition between us. The fact that for me, my father isn't necessarily taking the lead on that is a minor example, or a small example of the larger issue that has infiltrated my relationship with my father for a very long time. In this instance, I feel I have every right to behave like the child. Not a child, but the child. Okay. Part of already dealing, and let me be clear too, this is not an easy thing to decide or to carry through. It does bother me, but for right now, I'm not necessarily motivated in resolving it. I'm just not. Some of the people who feel me being naive is, oh, well, you're going to regret not talking to your father. This is respect to people who have lost parents through death, particularly, or maybe never had relationships with their parents. That's a different perspective. And that's not a perspective I I'm lying because I have some knowledge of that because I have another parent that I've been, unfortunately, involuntarily estranged from. When I respond to that, I might regret it. People just start glitching. Just because I might regret something or I might later regret it, I don't know if that means I need to behave in this moment today like my future self that might regret it down the line. When I talk about self trust, okay, I trust myself enough if, God forbid, that this has stayed into existence, this distance between me and my father. And I, unfortunately, I don't talk about it, but I lose him or whatever. I have trust in myself that I'll be able to cope with that regret. And the reality is, when we lose people in our life, we always got regret. You could spend. I was talking to a client recently whose grandmother passed away. She was in her 90s, I want to say, maybe late 80s. I don't remember, but you never get enough time. You never get enough time with the people that you care about and the people that you love. You don't ever get enough time. So anyway, I've just been finding having to deal with that issue of estrangement and then the pushback that I get for it. It's annoying. It's just annoying to me. But I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. I wanted to talk about that. Why do we find that so uncomfortable? We've all heard that phrase, well, that's your mom. Well, that's your dad. Yeah, we know that. I know that's my dad. I wonder if people are saying that to him. Like, well, that's your daughter. Or, well, that's your son. My friend was like, you would be devastated if something happened to your dad. Yeah, I would be. I don't understand why you think I'm coming to the situation or I'm experiencing the situation devoid of all feelings, devoid of all emotions. Yeah, I would definitely feel I would be devastated. And that would happen if I was talking to my father, and it would have happened if I wasn't talking. I'm gonna be devastated regardless. That's my father, who I've had a relationship with. But also the flip side of that, there's no guarantees that he leaving this earth before me. I might depart the earth before my father. Okay, so this is a two-way street here because and I get it, we got probabilities we're going to be respectful of, but at the same time, we don't have no certainties, and we're going to be respectful of that as well. So it started making me think about that. What is it? Right? Why do I feel the pressure from other people to repair, or why I don't feel support from people around that? Like, because I think it's that same kind of thought process that we have of, well, that's your mom, that's your dad. So there's this level of expectation, not just from your parent, but expectations from other people for you to show up and behave a particular way as it relates to the dynamic with your parents, or deciding to go no contact with them, or whatever you're deciding to do. Maybe there's this level too of the discomfort around someone who has decided to actually set boundaries. People that tend to go no contact with their parents, it's not a decision that happens overnight. I know that in the culture that we live in today, like, we love a cutoff. We love talking about that, which I think is odd too. I think that's very problematic, how much we promote just cut them off, just cut them off. If somebody does something to you and you don't like it, cut it off. Oh, they're not meeting your needs. Okay, cut it off. What's crazy is so many people don't know how to identify or express their needs, which is something I continuously learn all the time. We don't have the best communication skills. We don't have conflict resolution or problem solving skills. We're deficient, in a sense, in our interpersonal skills. Instead of, because you're only going to learn interpersonal skills by being in relationship to someone, participating in the relationship, and desiring to show up in a different way or to show up better. Okay. So promoting the cutoff, promoting the work sometimes, or the avoidance of the work that it takes to repair, pushing that narrative is just problematic. It's problematic. And this is the thing too, like repair can be uncomfortable. Repairing strained or broken relationships can be really uncomfortable. It can be really triggering for people because the reality is a lot of people don't know how to problem solve on an interpersonal level. A lot of people don't have conflict resolution skills. Part of having conflict resolution skills actually is to be able to regulate your emotions, regulate the need to have everything settled, perfect, resolved in a particular part of time or a particular amount of time. Me leaning into, because I didn't go into the situation with my father being like, I'm gonna be estranged from you. I went into the situation with my dad responding to the distance that started. I mean, I started a level of distance, but we still had contact. Then it went to absolute distance. And I just responded to that. What I had to do too was learn how to regulate my emotions. Even now, there's a urge, kinda ish, to maybe reconnect because there's been subtle signs coming from the other side of that. And I've been, I'm in process of thinking about what that looks like for me. I think sometimes I have to be intentional in not responding to or reacting to the individual, individual, and then I just said the same thing, the invisible pressure that I feel to meet a level of expectation that I'm not sure I'm ready for right now. I have to manage that because I'm not upset. I've never initiated the no contact, but am I ready to get back into a dynamic that felt harmful to me, at least on an emotional sense. So I'm battling that. The decision isn't easy to say I'm going to be estranged from my parent or I'm deciding to go no contact. That's not something that happens overnight. But I think the way that we talk to people or that narrative of just cut them off, or if you're not satisfied, do that. I think that perspective infiltrates into how people think I'm being immature or I'm being childish or however you want to describe it, because you think that I'm not being thoughtful about my approach to the situation. And of course, the other part about that, people don't see your efforts for real towards repair or to try to prevent the worsening of something going on. I look at the distance right now between my father and I as preservation of the relationship. And this is the thing about boundaries. We always think that boundaries are around punishing people. That's not a boundary. Now, there should sometimes be consequences to someone violating your boundaries, but a boundary in itself is relationship supporting. And so, me enacting this or allowing the distance to kind of settle and utilizing that as a boundary regarding my presence in the dynamic with my father is actually relationship preserving. Because I don't know how things would have, they already hit a point of contention, they already hit a point of escalation. So, but they could have hit a point of escalation where I really intentionally wanted to sever ties. I don't feel that way. I'm not fearful of never having a relationship with my father again. I don't even have that extreme take on it. I'm just sitting in the uncertainty of it, and we're gonna see how it ends up panning out. But I think, I've made multiple attempts to repair, multiple efforts before this thing to enhance our relationship. I put certain boundaries in place to the relationship. And boundaries sometimes too are around your own limitations. And when I say limitations, I'm saying where I stop and where the next person begins. right? Doing certain things, right? Or meeting certain expectations that I maybe don't care to meet is where I stop. I don't want to. That's a limit, and where that other person begins. You can't dictate to me or force my hand in anything. This is what we also have a hard time accepting in our relationships. We don't control people. We can't get people to do what we want them to do. They're going to do it or they're not going to do it. I used to have a debate, or I had a debate in the past with a friend when I was talking about standards and expectations. You have expectations out of people. That's fine. I think there's some differences there with having standards versus expectations, because when you have expectations, that's exactly what you think. You think it's certain that a person is going to behave in this way, and it's not. People will say, "Well, yeah, you can expect honesty from somebody." Oh yeah, you can. You can, but that's usually an expectation that's going to likely set you up for a failure, right? Because most people, come on, nobody's 100% honest. Sorry. that's just the reality. So you can expect it, but there's a high likelihood that expectation is not going to be met when you look at it as a standard. I mean, in terms of, hey, to interact with Jasmine, I would like for you to be honest. I was going to say expect, but I would like, right? I want relationships I participate in to have a standard of honesty there. Okay. And then if that standard isn't withheld, or if that standard is violated in a way, maybe repetitively, or violated in a way that it's, you know what I mean, damaging to the dynamic or the relationship, then I might have to decide that relationship can no longer be maintained within the confines of my standards. Right? Because I mean, you ain't gotta be honest. But if you want to be in relationship with me, that's a standard that I hope that you want to uphold as well. That's it. That's it. And so again, this is not it's not a situation that just happened overnight. It's repeated efforts to try to resolve differences and problems. There was repeat instances of apologies, agreeing to related to a change of behavior that never really actually took place. And the more I felt like I settled into the distance, or the acceptance of the exclusion. I mean, didn't expect to be excluded in things, but after a while, like and I don't know, maybe it's my ego, maybe I have a problem. That's okay. I'm okay with this. But if you don't want me around, guess what? I won't be around. It's that simple for me. I am definitely not about to fight to be included around or in a situation where I'm regularly being excluded. It's just not how I get down. Okay. And people, hey, how do you want, I talk about this all the time. How do you want to respond to being excluded? I maintain the exclusion. So I decided to respond to it. I'm okay with whatever consequences of that, because what ended up happening is more exclusion. So it's like, okay. And then this is the thing: when people do that and they punish you, they get upset when the effects of that appears to not bother you. It's not, and it's not that it doesn't bother me, it's the acceptance of it. Because once you accept something, and we talk about this in different capacities, but when you accept something, it loses its power. Or you have greater control over whatever it is that you're doing. In a sense, right? We talk about that with emotions a lot. Once you accept your emotion that you're having, usually it starts to de-escalate. If you accept a challenge that you're having in life, the quicker you can get to figuring out what a solution is. But if you can't accept it, then how can you solve for it? So I accepted that exclusion. Basically, I was informed, by behavior that my boundaries weren't good enough. Or were too much, I should say. Not good enough, but they were just too much. That I shouldn't take efforts to set standards for how I want to be engaged with and interacted with. A lot of parents, when they're on the receiving end of that estrangement, a lot of times they have served their parents in a particular way. Usually you see that, like, okay, well, I did this with my parents, therefore you need to do this with me. When you're not behaving in the way that they decided to behave with their parents or in their relationship, then you're problematic. And that's the same thing I'm picking up on sometimes too with people who have pushback between what I'm doing in my relationship with my dad. It's the same thing. You're not behaving in the way that I hold myself to, even if I don't want to. So I expect for you to do it too. We expect people to do the things that we have a hard time doing. We expect people to have a hard time doing it too, a lot of times. And it makes us uncomfortable when people actually have the courage to do certain things that we have been complacent at tolerating. Okay. And there's a lot of that going on. Well, I'll tolerate this, so you should tolerate this too. No. I ain't got nothing. If that's what you tolerate, that's fine. What I tolerate is different or what I don't tolerate. I feel like people really like sometimes it's really difficult talking with your parents about their shortcomings. They get very defensive. People talk about this all the time of like, oh, well, I was just a terrible parent. And they go to this extreme. You can see the way that I started this episode. I talked about the complication of how I feel about my dad. He's not all good and he's not all bad. It's complex because parenting is a hard job. Let's be real. It's hard. It doesn't come with a manual for real. You could do something that you feel like you're doing that's good, that you think is positive, and later down the line, it has a negative impact, a negative consequence. That doesn't mean your intentions weren't good. It just means that as a result of these decisions, these are the consequences that happen. And sometimes parents have a hard time taking ownership of the mistakes that they've made that have had significant impact on their child's life. And they're constantly running, right, from confronting themselves. I wholeheartedly feel that's what ultimately leads to parental estrangement. Think about being estranged from someone, distance, being away, running away from the confrontation of looking at themselves. Because I don't think most people who are within reason actually expect their parents to be perfect. I think most people recognize that there's likely, can't change the past. And so sometimes what we're looking for is simple acknowledgement, but also a change in behavior. In order to actually change behavior, there has to be a level of what? Acceptance that you weren't a perfect parent. Again, parenting is such a difficult job. It's a hard job. It's an important job. It's like we just can't face that maybe we didn't always do the best. Maybe we didn't always make the best decision. And we don't acknowledge a lot of parents, I'm gonna say, that they need to work on themselves to improve the relationship. Because a lot of parents on a generational level have been used to one-sided dynamics. One-sided, especially when there is hierarchy. I'm your parent, I'm your father, I'm your mother. My role in the hierarchy is above yours. But the thing is, they felt you should be devoted to them and because of their role, not how they're functioning in the role. You know what I mean? It's just because I have this title, you should act accordingly to just my title, not to how I'm actually showing up in the title, in the relationship. If I want to be viewed in a particular way, if I want to have impact as it relates to the title that I hold, the importance of the title, right? Because you want me to recognize the importance of the title, but you don't want to be responsible for what it means to show up in a particular way that supports the importance of the title. If you want to be interacted with as a all-star mom of the year, I mean, you have to be behaving in ways that support that identity. You cannot outsource the support of your need to be viewed in a particular way through other people. And you have to understand where you're dropping the ball as it relates to repair. Adult children, small children, all children have a built-in tendency, essentially, to want to be connected to their parents. They have a desire for that. I used to work in foster care, and we used to talk about that all the time. Kids they could suffer the worst types of abuse, and they still gonna want to be with their parents. So that desire is built in. Most people, not all, but most people who are having issues with their parents desire to repair it and reconnect with them. But if I can't work with you, if we can't sort through these things, if we're always avoiding that conflict or discomfort, right? How can we move forward? And underneath this pursuit or desire that a lot of adult children have is for a better relationship with their parents. They want a better relationship. They want more, usually, access in a way of, I want you more available to me, usually emotionally. It's not this thing of like, oh, you did the worst thing and now I'm punishing you. And I'm gonna say this. Of course, people engage in this type of behavior and they're not maybe as self-aware or acknowledgeable, and so they are reacting. They're very reactionary. I want to hold that nuance that some people who are estranged from their family or from their parents, maybe they're not seeing things, I don't want to say clearly per se, but they have maybe a challenge in seeing a different perspective, I should say, a perspective on what's actually happening. Sometimes people need help to see things more clearly. I try to take that as good intentions with people in my life that kind of push back on my decision to be estranged from my father as a way to try to help shift my perspective. But in shifting somebody's perspective, you also have to acknowledge their reasoning. You have to make space for that. I need us to get a little bit more comfortable with conflict, with distance, with estrangement. There's lessons in the discomfort that we feel when we are so quick to end our discomfort. We don't necessarily allow things to pan out the way they maybe need to pan out. We don't give people space, as we talk about distance, we don't give people space to understand that maybe they actually want something different. Maybe they realize they're willing to come to the table in a different capacity. Maybe they're, understanding that maybe it's been me. But if we don't create that space, if we can't tolerate, learn how to tolerate not resolving things immediately, the urgency to because we hate sitting in conflict. Why? Because it's uncertain. We don't know where it's going to go. Am I holding on to this, or me being distant? Like I said, when people say to me, oh, something happened to your dad. Why are you introducing something that's gonna make me anxious? I'm learning how to sit in the discomfort of being estranged from my father. And that's teaching me something about myself. I'm hoping it's teaching my father something about himself. And I'm hoping those lessons that we're learning, hopefully, that we're integrating, will allow us to come back together and have not a perfect relationship, but hopefully a better relationship. And so sometimes estrangement isn't forever, it's for some time. Sometimes space and distance help us get what? Clarity. While we're so quick to try to ascertain things, sometimes clarity arrives through letting things unfold, not controlling everything. You'll be surprised the type of clarity that you might get if we're not always trying to rush to not even resolve the conflict, but to resolve our discomfort that the conflict is causing. Okay? Even this episode was uncomfortable. And it didn't go exactly the way that I wanted it to go, but it went fine because I think I allowed it to unfold. I had a little outline, but I was like, you know what? Let me let this unfold. Let's see what happened. I wanted to share that with you. It's very vulnerable. I want us to think about how we're actually showing up in relationships. What are we actually, what are our boundaries? What are our limitations? What are our standards for interactions with us? Kind of relationships you want to actually be a part of, I should say. And are we maintaining relationships just because they hold a particular title? But, is the relationship causing us harm? Are we quick to shut things down and run away from conflict and close that, cut off people because we don't want to actually sit in the discomfort of our own emotions? I don't know. Let's ask ourselves some of those questions. Anyway, this has been Relational Rants. I'm J. Marie Unmuted. I'm rushing now because I got to go do stuff because, whatever, that's how I get down. Follow me, like, share, subscribe. Okay. I'm on all the social media platforms. I'm also on wherever you find your podcast episode. So thank you for following along with me. I hear you. I see you. I'm here with you. And thank you for being here with me. And until next time, I'm J. Marie Unmuted and I'm out.
It's J. Marie, Relational Rants.